What about Liverpool? Will they head into the new season with a new man in the dugout? Arne Slot knows his first game in charge at the club now. It'll be away to Ipswich, and Vinny O'Connor is at Anfield for us.
That's it. We know exactly the start that Arne Slot has got in store for him at Liverpool after succeeding Jurgen Klopp. It is Ipswich away on that first day, followed by Brentford at home, and then a big one against Manchester United away at Old Trafford as well. Alongside me is Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap. And Neil, I just wonder what you make of that start that's in store for Arne Slot now.
I mean, Ipswich away feels like quite something.
I'm not going to talk about half-12 kickoffs, by the way.
Well, yeah, they had a great time at the end of last season. You know, it looked brilliant around Portman Road. So to go and get to be part of that's no bad thing at all. It'll be difficult because they'll be really well drilled, and it's the biggest game of some of those players' lives. Let's bear that in mind. But you've got to play everyone and go from there. I think the start's actually been quite kind. There's none of what I'd sort of term the big eight apart from United in the first 7 fixtures. And I'm happy with the Manchester team away in the early run. It's something I said I wanted because we often don't win there. So if it's taking a bit of time to bed down, we drew at Old Trafford last season, we drew at the Etihad last season. You know, we don't have that many wins at Old Trafford in general. So these things happen from time to time, but nonetheless, it's still exciting, isn't it? You know, it's great to have the full list in. It's great to be able to plot your moves, and it's brilliant to go to Brighton in the summer.
I'm sure you're already thinking that if you can get 9 points from those first 3 games, then you go into the international break in great shape.
Absolutely, yeah, the sky's the limit. Let's envisage it now. I think in being able to plot a course is the most important thing, and I think that the other thing that's broken nicely for Liverpool is I quite like the games after the Champions League matches are put in. No one entirely comprehends how that'll be yet. We haven't lived one. Everyone's got to play at least 2 very good teams, 2 good teams, 2 quite good teams, and then maybe 2 who are a little bit weaker. And those 8 games, who you've got before, after then, it's telling. So I'm quite happy with how that's broken for Liverpool as well. I think that there's a bit of kindness in there. But because we've got a relatively straightforward start, it means we've got a pretty horrendous December, and it means we've got a pretty tough April and May. That's the way in which it goes. You can't, you can't repeatedly play the weaker sides in the league, but the league's strong, and you've got to rate everybody who you come up against because there's no passengers anymore.
Well, let's have a look at that December. I mean, before that as well, there's a little bit in October where you got Chelsea here at Anfield, and then it's Arsenal away. But moving up towards December, City here on the 30th of November, although that could end up being in December, obviously. Then it's Newcastle away, followed by the Merseyside derby at Goodison, Fulham home, and then it's Spurs away on the 21st.
Yeah, that's very, very tough because there'll be a couple of Champions League games in there as well. Listen, you don't want Newcastle after playing Champions League football. They're going to have a week between games this season. Of those top 8 sides, they're the ones who haven't got European football. They're going to be so dangerous, so well drilled. They're already physically imposing. You know, that's one of the things that Eddie Howe's got going on there. So the idea that there's a week that they get that you don't get, so that's a relief. Listen, at Goodison, we've got to put right what once went wrong, to quote Sam Beckett on Quantum Leap, off the back end of last season, and that obviously is a massive game, but then you go into Goodison Park and the atmosphere will be absolutely unbelievable. You know that they'll be up for it like nothing on earth. So yeah, that's a really, really tough week. And we know the other thing that you can point out, as you've said, all 3 of those games will be televised. All 3 of those games will be massive events, and that's something else that Slot's going to have to get used to. These players already know, but the reality of this is, if you're Liverpool manager, you're the centre of the story, you're the centre of attention. That week is one already. It's got a big red circle around it for everyone, I'm sure.
And not only that, of course, you start the new year against United here as well.
Yeah, I'm into that one. That one's great. I think it's interesting the way in which they moved the FA Cup. I think there was a bit of noise in amongst all the stuff around the replays. What was missed was all the FA Cup games now get their own weekends until you get to the semi-final. What that means, though, is that they'll push the 3rd round of the FA Cup back to January the 11th, which means we get a little bit of a longer lead time into that. What it does lead to, I think, is there will be a little bit of an advantage for some sides if they do go out of the Cup relatively early, because there'll be a bit more time to rest and recuperate between these matches. It's going to be, let's be honest, all the way up and down the pyramid. I think this at times ends up being a focus on European teams in the Premier League. You've got Championship sides, you've got League 1, League 2 sides playing EFL Trophy games as well. 46 games is so many. I think there is a bit of a thing here where more and more there's going to be chat about the burden on the footballers, because not only are they asked to play this many games, but there's this much intensity and there's this much riding on all of them. And as I say, I mean that for League 2 sides as well as for teams like Liverpool and Manchester City. I think we do need to think about looking after the players a little bit more.
Just finally then, and on that kind of theme, how intense could that run-in be for Liverpool when you've got Chelsea away, Arsenal home, Brighton away, Palace at home, those final 4 games?
They're the final 4 league games, but if Liverpool are still in Europe at that point, and we all want them to be, you're dropping Champions League semi-finals in there as well, first and second legs. in the Dutch league, you play 34 games, you haven't got a League Cup. And that is, it's one of the concerns for the new manager coming in, is that there's a lot to get used to here. It took Klopp time in his first season, it took Guardiola time in his first season. Let's be clear about that. This isn't me making excuses, by the way. Liverpool should be challenged on all fronts. That's the job, and that's what he's got to have a squad of mass to do that for him and work with the powers that be at Liverpool. But yeah, what you've just named there, that is one challenging running, and that game, third to last at this place against Arsenal, if there's anything riding on it, it could be absolutely unbelievable.
Thanks very much for joining us, Neil. Maybe we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves when we're talking about a run-in and exactly where the teams could be, but certainly excitement already ahead of the new Premier League season.